What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. It's episode number 854. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, how's the week been?
It's been great. Just a really chill week. I just root again, as always, for weeks where nothing bad happens. Just stay the course is good. I was telling you, actually, I'm going to run into a problem pretty soon here. Every single cube draft I've done for like the past 2 weeks, I've opened like 1.8 pieces of power. Like, it's just crazy.
Oh, no. You've been running
flooded with ancestrals and moxes and lotuses. Just so much. Like, you might think I'm cherry picking based on me putting up draft videos with just like where I'm just like 2 pieces of power, 2 pieces of power, 3 pieces of power. I've just been on a hot streak, and it's bound to run out at some point here, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's funny when you get used to running above average, and then you're just like, wait a minute, like this isn't. But you're good, man. You're going to come up with it. By the way, I watched your video where you kind of looked back at some of the cards in Cube that no longer cut it either. Some of them are still in there, but kind of flailing a bit. And other ones are cards of the past that aren't really included in like the Magic Online Cube or the powered cube on Arena or your version of the vintage cube. It made me sad. I miss those cards.
Fun video to make, but like looking at cards like Treachery, Bribery, Armageddon, like these cards used to be pretty legit. They're just kind of not anymore.
I really like when you had Draga Tree Speaker, and I was just like, oh yeah. Remember when that like people were like, oh crap, they have a Tree Speaker, I don't have an answer. They're just going to completely go off, and they would. And I mean that stuff was really good back then. I do wonder if you put the full Elves package back in. Because speed was never the problem with the Elves deck, right? Like they would almost always have a turn 1 mana accelerator, and then turn 2 they would start doing stuff. And now we even have these like mid-range threats that cost 3 and 4 mana rather than 5, 6, and 7 that are pretty dang good. And I wonder if it's time to bring back the Elf deck. Like I don't really understand why it died.
Mostly
it's not slow, right?
Just not good enough. Like is the problem. Like I think like you run into someone who has a fatal push for your turn 1 elf, and your deck can be kind of inconsistent, or like it can slow it down a lot, or you can draw a hand with all elves or no action or no elves, and your hand's full of 3 and 4 drops, and then you play against someone who has like a mox, and it's just like they get to do their whole thing without wasting a turn on a vulnerable elf. So I think the good elves are all the good 1 mana elves. We could put more elves in. I just don't think that would drastically change how things play out.
All right. Well, I'm not really an advocate for it, but I keep looking at some of these old cards and being like, there's got to be a way to make them good. Anyway, cool video. Make sure you check that out on Luis's YouTube channel. But we've got more people to introduce, as it turns out. We are bringing back yet again our good friend Sierkovitz, all the way from Cornwall, which Sierkovitz is a ceremonial county in southwest England. It is
you've done research.
It is one of the Celtic nations.
He did his research.
And it is the homeland of the Cornish people, although not Sierkovitz's homeland originally, but he's there now. The county, ceremonial county Sierkovitz, is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean, Devon,
which we tolerate,
and the English Channel,
which we also tolerate.
And that's where he lives. Welcome, Sierkovitz. It's nice to see you.
Nice being here. Thank you very much for this very detailed description of Cornwall. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I messed it up.
You redeemed yourself.
I think every time I've ever had you on. So we went all the way down the rabbit hole on the full deal. It is like an absolutely stunning place, though, right, Sierko? Isn't it?
I thought about Cornwall the other day too, because there's a place called the Pasty Republic here in Denver that sells pasties, like
pasties.
Like
they're called pasties.
Sorry, pasties. And they have a map of the UK, and Cornwall's on it because they sell Cornish pasties.
What's a pasty?
Yeah, because pasties are Cornish. It's like a calzone-ish thing.
A calzone?
It's like a British, it's like a British empanada.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. What's in it?
Calzone stuffed with stew. It's stew made from potato, sweet, meat, carrots, with the gravy kind of sauce.
And then, but they put it in a pastry?
Yeah, and they crimp it so that it's closed, and then you bake it. And of course, there are different versions. There's like cheese and onion. There's
honestly, this sounds like it's right up your alley.
Mushroom and garlic one.
Sierkovitz, this sounds kind of like food from the homeland. Are you a frequent pasty guy?
I do eat my pasties and Dog and Smuggler in Falmouth. Yes, DC. I made them add to a pasty shop that sells probably 12 pasties a day. So big business boost.
There you go. Very nice. Anyway, welcome back to the show, Circa. We're going to be talking Secrets of Strixhaven today and getting your take on it and seeing where you're at in the format. And we've got a couple of other things to talk about. There's a new draft queue on Arena. And then I also wanted to talk with you guys about the Winnabox, the Arena Direct that happened on the last weekend as well. Before we do, I wanted to say thank you to everybody who supports us on Patreon. You can find our Patreon at patreon.com/limited resources if you'd like to support us there. We also want to say thank you to Ultimate Guard for their support of the show. They make the best stuff in the business. If you need ways to protect your cards, your decks, and in fact, your whole collection, you can find it at ultimateguard.com. They use premium materials and really well thought out designs, and they have a bunch of really cool collaborations with some of your favorite IPs, characters, things like that. Again, their full line is at ultimateguard.com, and you can pick up their products from your favorite local game store or online retailer. Thank you, Ultimate Guard. For our Patreon question of the week, Luis, this one actually comes from one Woodman Anglais, otherwise known as Woody, and he has a question for you. So let's say, Luis, that this is his hypothetical. You are going to play in the next PT, or even in, let's say you're going to play in the one that was just in Vegas, okay? You were going to play in that. You're going to use a Hall of Fame invite. You're going to show up and you're going to battle. You have access to all the things you normally have access to, like your team, their testing and all of that. And as it turns out, they came up with what they assume is a pretty darn good deck for the format. Not broken, not we really think we did it, but they're happy, right? Everybody's like, okay, this is a good deck. We've put our time in on it. We're good to go. And of course, you know, the draft format, you will have your 10-day understanding of it with the aid of your team as well. But the night before the Pro Tour, you're given an option. You can either play the team deck, or you can jump on to, actually, I'm gonna up this even slightly, a little bit more. You can jump onto the team draft server, the cube draft server. Mm-hmm. You can draft, say, the Magic Online Vintage Cube against whoever's on there, and the deck that you get, the 40 card deck that you get, you can have that be your constructed deck instead.
Oh, okay, that's a more interesting question, because I have been offered the opportunity to switch decks a few times, and I have regretted it once, and mostly not regretted it. Mm-hmm. So the one time I did regret it was right before Worlds 2007, where Chapin and Nassif were going to play that mono-red Dragonstorm deck. Mm-hmm. The one where the famous Ignite Memories clip comes from when the two of them played in the top 8. So you have
epic.
I hint of where this is going, and I had a red-green snow control deck that me and Chion had worked on, and it was so much worse. I should have just switched. I really regret that. But most of the time, it's like, no, I should just keep playing the deck I practiced with. So what's the format again?
So it's standard.
And I take a cube deck. I think that my guess is you're actually like, you've got a reasonable chance of your cube deck being worse, but when it's better, it's like you're never going to get an edge like that in a standard Pro Tour. Right. Like I think if I took blue-red prowess, whatever flavor is great. Did you know that in standard there's multiple different kinds of blue-red prowess decks that are like a very good deck?
Absolutely.
And a blue-red, a Steam Vents cantrip deck has been the best deck for probably a decade.
Totally. Like. You can beat people down. You can do the monument thing. There's all types of stuff. There's the elementals version and they all did well. It's like completely busted. The other thing so two interesting considerations, Luis, definitely agree with you that if you ran good, got a couple of pieces of power and had a really nice high-end deck, that would be like really strong.
The Academy deck I drafted today that had Academy, Moxjet, Ancestor Recall, Mishra's Workshop, Basalt Monolith, Urza, Ugin, like that deck would just roll every standard deck it played against.
You think so? Okay. The two interesting things, like if we dive into it a little bit, were one of them was which is more consistent? A 40 card singleton deck, but that has a lot of cards that kind of overlap with each other functionally, or a 60 card deck that has access to 4-ofs? Like, which does the thing that they're trying to do more consistently? I don't know the answer to that.
From what Lewis was describing, a 60-card deck with 4-offs will be consistently worse than what Lewis was trying to do with the Academy deck. Because it has 4-offs of cards that are way, way, way worse than whatever was mentioned before.
Yeah, what about, let's say, average cube deck? I don't know. I'm wondering more just like, would you rather, if you wanted to do the same thing every time, which that is
the thing is, the standard decks will be more consistent just in general.
They will. Okay.
Well, I mean, even from just like a math perspective, if you look at it, the standard deck is playing like 9 4-ofs right at the most basic level, right? 9 4-ofs and 24 land. Obviously, it's not quite like that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those 4-ofs are duplicates, where it's like sleight of hand and consider are like kind of the same card. In fact, both those cards even push you towards being more consistent just by virtue of what they do. The cube deck is 23 1-ofs and 17 land. And yes,
but they're grouped, right? Like
the cube deck also could have replacements. It has Animate Dead and Exhume or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if you say I have 4 counter spells in my 40, 10% of your deck are counter, like let's say 1 or 2 mana counters. Yes, they're technically 4 separate cards, but they're serving a similar role. That kind of thing.
I would say in general the standard decks are going to be quite a bit more consistent, but the cube decks can also. If you knew this was the setup, you also would draft a little differently. Like I would go pretty hard to try to find a combo or something like that.
You would. You try to go as broken as possible because that was the other wrinkle.
That's my inclination.
Yeah, that was the other wrinkle that I wanted to bring up. Can you imagine
a standard deck beating like a fast flash deck or a deck that's good at like tinkering?
I mean, dude, have you seen standard lately? Like it's 3-year rotation. Those decks look.
No, those decks are really good.
They are approaching modern from a few years ago.
I would also want to know a little more about is this a standard format where people frequently have graveyard hate? If so, I'm not really that interested in trying to draft a Reanimator deck against someone who will bring in 4 Soul-Guide Lanterns.
I was bringing up there is that I specifically asked Woody in his hypothetical, when does Luis draft this deck? And he said the night before. And that actually means that your team's metagame predictions are baked into your draft strategy, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, to the extent that you can force a deck, I don't know, maybe all the decks are really slow and don't have any removal. And you're like, I'm just going to draft red or red white or whatever and try to, push a certain strategy through versus just, normally you sit down and just try to draft. Well, normally you sit down and try to draft Academy, but theoretically you would draft the best deck that you could, regardless of what the archetype was. But maybe you would change that in this setup.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing to consider for sure.
Would you really do it? Would you really take the chance?
Yeah, I think so. You can just the tail on the cubes is like the more busted, like 20%. That's not even talking about the 5%. The busted 20% in cubes is pretty busted.
It is pretty busted. What would you take, Sierko? Would you take the cube draft route?
Nah, I just pick the standard deck.
Yeah.
But that just is a testament of my capability in Vintage Cube more than anything else.
That's fair.
I think that, if you know this metagame well, I think that Breach combo is pretty well positioned in standard right now because there's not so much counterspelling. Academy is pretty well positioned because there's almost no artifact hate. Graveyard decks I probably wouldn't try to draft because there's plenty of hate for lessons to remove stuff from the graveyard, and there's always this Sultai Reanimator threat that people put some Soul-Guide Lanterns and stuff like that. But there are decks that are definitely going to... And, I think that turn 1 Lotus Lurus is also an option that you might have that will not be beaten very easily by anything in Constructed right now.
It'd be really interesting.
Or just turn 1 Lotus is generally like a problem for a standard deck.
Yeah, I think for most of the time I've been covering Magic, I would have taken the cube deck with no hesitation. I think I still would take it, but standards, it's crazy now. It is so much more powerful than it's ever been because they added that extra year of rotation, and the pool is really deep, and people
that
are
extra
not
year of
doing
rotation
fair
is 2 years.
Sorry.
That extra year of rotation is 2 years because there's double the amount of sets in it as well. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, a year of 7 sets added to the fold has really boosted its power level. Anyway, thanks for the question, Woody. All right, let's go to
That's the best question I've ever heard Woody ask.
Let's go to our crack a pack.
I hope he's not listening.
Yeah, he will. Because I told him I'd ask you the question. All right, crack a pack for Secrets of Strixhaven. First card out is Titan's Grave. That is the green-black surveil land. Circo?
Lands are good.
Taking it first?
Well, I mean, from the cards that you mentioned, this is definitely my pick so far.
What if I added Terramorphic Expanse to the mix?
I will pick Terramorphic Expanse over the Titan's Grave.
Okay. So far, those are our first two cards.
So, it's a land. I mean, of the two cards that you mentioned. No,
yes.
the lands are really good. I mean, they are like probably among the best commons in the set so far.
Ooh, among
that
the
doesn't
very
say much
best
because commons are like not the most powerful things, but they are definitely like in the top 25% of commons.
What do you like about them? Just the normal.
Well, there's the converge option. Also, even if you're playing a streamlined 2-color deck, it's so much heavier on multicolor spells that you really want to be able to cast your... Like, having just green is not enough. In most sets, okay, I draw 4 green cards and I have my forest. I'm happy to, cast my spells. Here, I'm going to be decreasing the percentage of casting spells just because there's like 6, 7 multicolor cards in the deck.
Embrace the Paradox.
I really like that card. It's very good card in black-green decks. One of the better cards in the black-green decks, because that's the weakness that black-green has. It doesn't have card advantage that much.
And they can splash it pretty easily.
Yeah, in your teamwork kind of spells deck, it's not a high priority because there's plenty of blue replacements that are equal or better. But yeah, it's a solid card. I would still pick a Terramorphic Expanse.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't found myself like desperately seeking Embrace their Paradox ever.
Yeah,
but they also go late, so that's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Next up is Wilt in the Heat. Very solid removal spell.
I've basically never seen this get cast for 2, or like it getting cast for 2 in a relevant fashion has just not come up a lot for me.
I found a sweet combo with it. If you use the what's it called, the 5 and a red 4/4 that gets you a spell back, and you target it cheapens itself.
Yeah.
So
that's one way I cast it. I cast like the blue XX spell, returning spells to my hand, and I left just white and red to kill something on the same turn as well.
So all the time.
Yeah. And with Rumble Rouser, you cast it a lot of the time for 2 mana. It's just like question as to whether the discount is relevant, and can you squeeze in a 3-drop together with the Wilt. And that's happening if you're playing Streamline Whiter. Anyway, card is good. It's a solid removal, but again, it's not like a first pickable card. It won't make your deck best. But you want to have it in your white-red or Jeskai deck.
Next is Stadium Title Mage, the 4/4.
Yeah, that has poor numbers, but I actually found it quite useful in some of the versions of the deck. The problem is that blue-red wants to play preferably 0 creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a perfect version of blue-red deck will survive maybe with 1 or 2 creatures, and both of them are title something colors. But most of the time, you are not going to end up with a perfect version, and then I find it's actually fine. The problem is that if you play very few creatures, those creatures will automatically become targets of removal, and therefore opponent will always have removal for it because you didn't cast any creatures early because you cast your Tome Blasts and stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue with
like
playing like a 1 creature in your deck or whatever.
Yeah. This Title Mage, I've played a lot of Sealed in this format because of all the arena directs that they've ran, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But Title Mage is one of the few like kind of bad cards or mediocre cards that is just there if you're a little short on in this color pair that is actually a creature that I would put into my deck. It still kind of stinks, like it feels like your 23rd card or filler, but at least it has 4 toughness. At least you get something out of it when you cast it that's relevant, and it isn't, completely embarrassing, but it's like that card that represents the border for me in Sealed between, okay, fine, this is one of the creatures I will actually put in my deck.
Yeah, but I mean, there would have been formats where this card, and I'm not talking formats, 10 years ago. I'm talking formats in the last 2 years where this card would have been great in blue-red. It's just that it doesn't align very well with blue-red, specifically in Secrets of Strixhaven.
That's right.
Because there's nothing wrong with it. It's a Titan. I mean, enters, ability, ability on attack to get more value. What's not there to like?
I mean, it's very pushed. There's no question.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is the GOAT.
Yep, I'll pick it for now.
The all-timer. The best common mana rock we've ever had. Maybe.
Oh.
The dragon, the globe is right there too. It's Potioner's Trove.
Isn't Sol Ring a common?
I'm saying 3 mana common mana rock.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think there's no way Soul Ring's a common, right?
No, but it was an uncommon, I think. Yeah.
At least an uncommon 1 or an uncommon 2, Sierko. You're gonna wade into these waters. Potioner's Trove.
Yeah, very good card.
Potioner's Trove is excellent.
I don't want to first pick it. I want to pick it late because that's the best part of it. But I think that we're living in the economy right now when you have to start prioritizing it. And I think that so far it's just the best card in the pack.
Oh, yeah. Dude, you get it late? Get out of here. Prioritize or do not receive a Potioner's Trove. I would definitely...
Well, you don't want to prioritize the Potioner Trove over good spell payoffs that you need. I mean,
I do. I prioritize the Trove over it because, I mean, look, if they're excellent, I get what you're saying, and you kind of have to go. The way I see it is, if you find a really great spell payoff, you may just be in those 2 colors. Let's say it's gold, and you'd be fine with that card as one of your best cards anyway, and you don't need the Trove as highly. But if you're going to do 4+ colors, then the Trove is absolutely essential. And I kind of view it like, we were talking about old school cube stuff, Luis, and I remember John Laux used to draft the cube way 10 12 years ago, where he would just take lands out of the first like basically every pack. He would just take a dual land or a fetch, and he would sacrifice the majority, like say outside of the first 3 picks, just everything for that. And then he kind of knew what his mana base looked like, and for the last 2 packs he would just take all the best, like literally just algorithm was best card, take it type thing. And when I take a really early Potioner's Trove, I kind of feel like that, where I'm setting myself up. I'm sacrificing this pack worth of, potentially decent to good payoffs, not great payoffs, but decent to good. And then setting myself up for, if I open up great stuff later, I can kind of do whatever I want. I don't know if I'd first pick it here, but I would over the cards that we've seen so far. What do you think, Luis?
Yeah, I don't mind taking the Trove really early. Like, I think it opens the door to a lot of other things. I would take it here, but I would hope not to first pick it.
God, I hope to first pick it.
That's my feeling as well.
Next up is...
And also, I think that the arena is a bit... people are playing the soup decks a bit too much right now, and I found like spots in between those lines.
Sure.
Because
and it's also like that
an
in
open
Sealed.
lane of the... Yeah.
Yeah, I play a lot of those in Sealed, but whenever a good Lorehold or Silver Quill deck opens itself in front of me, I'm in. Like, because you got a lot of people playing tap lands and Potioner's Troves and missing a color, and you're just, curving out. Next up is Goblin Glasswright. That's the one that makes a treasure. We can talk about it in 8 picks. When it returns to us.
It's pretty replaceable, I would say.
Definitely. Thus begins our uncommons and rares, because this is the world we live in now. Next up is Inkshape Demonstrator. That's the 3/4 Ward 2, and it gets +1/+1 lifelink with Repartee.
I actually like that card quite a lot. It's very hard to kill. It's very annoying to face on the opposing side, because most of the time you have to spend 5 to 7 mana to kill it.
Yeah,
which is annoying. And it wins races against aggro decks.
Yes.
And it's also annoying against control decks because they won't have very easy ways of getting rid of it. And any kind of boost to its power, which is not that hard to achieve, and it becomes a proper clock. So I like it. I wouldn't pick it over the Potioner's Trove because, again, I'm not in the habit of prioritizing 4 drops that early in the draft, unless they're like bomby rares.
Right.
But it's a fine card.
Yeah, I agree. The annoyance factor of 4 toughness plus Ward 2 means that if they play this on turn 4, even on the draw, but particularly on the play, you are going to stare it down for a turn or two at least, and it rumbles well against everything else too. And like you said, the lifelink really helps in race situations. So it's kind of one of those cards that checks all the boxes, but isn't amazing in any of them.
Except the box of like, is this a good card?
I mean, it is a good card.
It's okay card. It's just hard for me to describe any card that's like middle of the pack, like in terms of costs and stats. Like you're just never lacking, like, you know, the cards like this. I feel like you're very rarely in a spot where like, man, this is exactly what I need.
Yeah, that is accurate. It definitely lives in the middle in a way that's not that desirable.
It just
but
one
it also
of the
like
best
never ever gets
for
cut.
white.
Yeah.
Where I am absolutely not prioritizing 4-drops in white. So that's the thing that is living in.
Yeah. I mean, I would take Trove over it. I would take Wilt Nahid over it, blah, blah, blah. Next is Topiary Lecturer. That's the tuner green 1/2 with increment, and it taps for mana equal to its power. I'm a little lower on the Lecturer than maybe
I haven't found this card to be great for me.
Yeah.
And my opponent's certainly not either.
Same. It dies a lot, and you know, spending that much mana, spending 3 mana for a 2 toughness creature is peril.
Yeah, and it dies, again, on the mana disadvantage to you most of the time. When it sticks, can be nice, can do some fancy things, can give you 3 mana on a turn, but it rarely will happen. So.
Right. I mean, I think it's like a legitimate argument between this and the Newt, and the Newt's a common. And it's like, I kind of just want that better. Like I get it on 2 and go to 4. Right. And it's like, you would think this would be better as an uncommon and costing an additional mana. Like pretty rough to go up a mana slot and a rarity slot and be like, I'd rather just have
it has the eternal problem of if I untap with it. This is a very, very big if in a format that has like decks with 14 pieces of removal in them.
Definitely. And almost all the removal kills small stuff. Next up is Deduce off of the bonus sheet.
Now that's a good card, and for me that's actually competitive with the Trove. I really like the Deuce.
Oh, I'm not really. I don't. I like it,
but Trove, I think.
Yeah, I just the problem is there's so much cantrippy and card draw stuff that I'm just like, I kind of just put it all into one bucket, and you know, like there's some that like really stand out.
How like sure, I'd rather have a Deduce than a quick study, but like how bad do you feel when you end up with that instead? It's not. It really isn't that bad.
Yeah,
right. And then there's the stock ups of the world, right, that are above, and then there's the embrace.
Of course,
the
those you would take extremely highly because of how good they are.
Because they're so good. Yeah. Next up is a card that really, really missed in this format. It feels like it maybe got dropped in from a different set or something, but it's Growth Curve. That's the green-blue
the green
sorcery. It puts a counter on a creature you control, and then you double the counters. It's like the whole point of increment was that you're supposed to get these counters from just casting other spells, right? Like that's the appeal to it, is that it's not asking that much. But this one's like, but you know what you really need? Even more of these counters. You know, I don't think I've ever seen anybody even cast a Growth Curve.
There is a deck. There is a deck that does use this card. It comes together very rarely, but there is the blue-green kind of tempo deck, and it's pretty fine in that deck. If you have the cuboid colonies. Cast the turn 2 cuboid colony, turn 3 you put this on it. You have a 5/5 flyer with whatever, either the dive down or the royal treatment protection, and you end the game in very quickly. But it is not something that I would prioritize. In fact, I would never pick it unless it wheels, because only if it wheels that deck can exist. There we are. Also, that's not how a growth curve looks like. I'm a microbiologist. I know how a growth curve looks like. This is not it. Yeah.
That's the part that offends you most about the card.
That's what we brought him on for. Yeah. Well,
there are not so many card names that have anything to do with my job. And this is one of them. And it doesn't look like a growth curve. Yeah. The growth curve, slow, then dynamic, and then die off.
This is what it says. It says there's no force stronger or more daunting than that of exponential growth.
They're faster growth than exponential growth, but okay, let's go with that.
Next up,
I will have a fight about it with Ben White at some stage.
Pretty nice. He'll love that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Next up is
he lives for that.
Carol History Buff, the red-white 2/3, and it lore holds into.
I don't think I've seen the card cast off this basically ever.
I think once. Yeah, it is so rare.
Oh, I cast it tons of time. I don't know. What are you guys doing? You're just living in your world of I want to have only spells and non-creature spells in my deck.
I like playing the 2 aggro
I just
decks.
think that the card just doesn't work all
It's
that
just
often.
super mid.
It's a fine card. It's 2 mana, 2/3. Like you're not really losing out too
How
much.
often
And
do
it
you
has
play
a threat.
Rabble Rousers?
All the time.
Yeah, Rabble Rousers is a good card.
You play Rabble Rousers and you never can cast the spell from Kirill?
Well, I
just
could,
often
but
it
I
just-
just have better
it
stuff to
dies.
do.
Or
Or you
it's-
have better things to do?
I just draft better decks.
Well, I'm not going to pretend I have better things to do.
Honestly, this is such a weak pack in terms of what is there. I don't really mind. It would depend on my vibes at the day. I could pick Trove,
answer.
I could pick Wilt, I could pick Terramorphic Expanse. Any of those 3 probably.
Luis?
But I think that it's maybe a bit underappreciated. That
I'm going to take
sometimes
the
those. Well, you are always in the mood for the Trove. That's the thing. But if you're not a person that is always in the mood to draft a Trove, it's sometimes we discuss those picks, but they're so close that it doesn't really matter even. Whatever you feel like drafting at a given day, at least put yourself in a position to draft it. So if I would be feeling more mid-rangey on a day, I would pick the Wilt. If I would be feeling more, I want to do the dirtly 5-color converge thing, I would pick the Trove. If there was a actual good 2-drop for an aggro deck, or like Last Gasp, I would maybe pick that one. But there is not.
Luis, what happened to Sierkovitz? You know, like he's our numbers guy. Dives into the data, comes back and goes, whatever vibe you're feeling, you go with that. That's his pick.
So, okay, if you want the numbers interpretation of that, there is no statistical significance in the win rate of those cards. Therefore, you don't have a preferred pick because you cannot even say which one is better based on the differences between them.
Wow, that was pretty good. He went right into professor mode on us. Luis, you're on
Yeah,
Trove?
no. Yeah, I'm on Trove.
Same. All right.
But
our
luckily
rares.
we have rares to bail us
We
out.
do. Well, or do we? Our first one is Pox Plague. That's the one that costs 5 black mana. So, no.
Wrong 5-mana black spell. There is a good 5-mana black spell in this set, but that's not one of those.
Okay. And what about Comforting Counsel? That's the 1 in a green enchantment. And whenever you gain life, it gets a growth counter. And when you get to 5 or more growth counters, all of your creatures get +3/+3 just as an enchantment.
Fun fact, if you draw it in your Witherbloom deck, the life gain technically deck, your win rate goes down by 8 percentage points.
Nice.
That is a fun fact.
It's a cool build around that you have there.
Yeah. The joke with
I
this,
took
right?
that card the first week and I was sorely disappointed, I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, the joke is supposed to be that you gain life a couple of times incidentally, and then you attack with a few pests that trigger it, and by the time they get into combat, they're all pumped up. That's supposed to be how it works, right?
Yeah, but the reality is that 1 in 10 games, when you manage to trigger it and you get the Anthem effect, it's amazing. And 9 out of 10 times, you mulliganed.
Right.
Because it doesn't do anything until it triggers, which means that you basically
Yeah.
use 2 mana to cast a nothing.
Yes.
And then if you don't trigger it, then you basically also lost a card.
Yeah, that's a very steep price to pay up front, and when you have no guarantee that it can go. I think the other thing is that like Luis and I did the set review. I think that right after that, I would have assumed, like, the picture in my head for Witherbloom was that pests were going to be kind of everywhere. They felt, tacked onto a few cards, and it was like, okay, these are going to be a thing that exist on the battlefield in this format. But it turns out, of the cards that you actually play, and the fact that Witherbloom's, is the weakest archetype, 2-color archetype, you actually don't get that many pests. You'll see 1 or something, but it's rare that you see like 3 or 4 on the battlefield at any given time. And that really hurts Comforting Counsel because, that is a really nice combo, right? Going wide with creatures that gain you life is a dream for Comforting Counsel. But it just feels to me like maybe they thought that you would either gain life more or have more pests around than actually plays out when you play the format.
I would bet that, for example, they thought that Potioner's Trove is going to be played more in the Witherbloom decks because there will be,
because
more
the life gain,
more spells heavy. Also, it's like in first Strixhaven, there were maybe not that many more cards that made Pest. There were a bit more of that, but there was Pest Infestation that was a lesson that you always got in your hand if you needed it. And then it created this sort of illusion that you're always getting pests because you always got 1 or 2 pest infestations in your sideboard.
Yeah. So neither of these are maybe the 2 worst. If you were to take any 2 rares, like these could be the 2 worst possible ones.
I'm actually thinking, I don't think I can just on the spot come up with a worse one.
A worst pair of rares. Yeah. So for me, I would. My thought process would be I would have it down to Post-Runner's Trove and Wilt in the Heat. I like both of those cards a lot. I do like the Inkshape Demonstrator too, and I like that it's white and goes well enough in either of the 2 white archetypes that it would catch my eye, but I would not prioritize it here. I would take either the Trove or the Wilt in the Heat. I really like both of those cards. I would probably just, like, if I was sitting down at just a regular arena draft right now, I would just take the Trove. Like, it's more fun. It keeps me open, and the power level is certainly there. What about you, Sirki?
I think today I would have picked the Wilt just because of the vibes. I have to represent my national colors, white and red, obviously.
There you go.
But any other day I could pick the Trove. And I think that you're right, like, Terramorphic Expanse is out of the discussion because if I would be feeling like a 5-color deck with Terramorphic Expanse is probably the best thing, then I'd probably still pick the Trove over it. So,
Luis, what does your vibes tell you?
I mean, I really don't see myself taking Wilt in the Heat under really any circumstances here. So,
okay,
I don't know. I would imagine that it would be hard for me to turn down the Trove.
Luis is taking that Trove. I like it.
He's taking a Trove.
I could pretend like I could think about other things, but like it keeps you pretty open. I don't know. There's a couple different decks you can draft with it. They all kind of end up looking similar, but I Wilt in the Heat is a lot more constricting. Like,
definitely.
If you take that, you're saying, yeah, you want to be Lorehold or some like multicolor deck, but in the multicolor deck, Trove is way better.
Right.
So I think that you can legit make an argument that like Trove leads you down like Prismari or 5-color Soup or sometimes Witherbloom, whereas Wilt in the Heat leads you down Lorehold. And I mean, look, neither of these first picks are very exciting.
I think that we can agree that this pack is just you're not happy opening something like that as a pack 1, pick 1 in your draft.
Oh, totally. Okay, a couple of things to talk about that have come up recently, which I think are interesting. One of them is we had another Arena Direct. This was for play boosters of Secrets of Strixhaven. And it feels like, there's kind of this feeling in the Magic community, and we felt it across different realms, I think, that, Wizards is squeezing, right? They're pushing hard to get money, basically. And it's pretty obvious that that's the case. They're owned by Hasbro, which has 2 things that are pushing it in that direction. One of them is they're a publicly held company and they have like a mandate basically to continue to grow. So just fundamentally, those institutions are built to do just that. So there's that. But then also, every time they have their quarterly report for Hasbro, it's like a bunch of mediocre stuff that's not doing very well right now, and then Magic booming. And, anybody that has paid attention may have noticed that the former CEO of Wizards of the Coast is now the CEO of Hasbro for the past few years. And that's no coincidence, right? They're like, look, this is the only one of our things that's really killing it. Move them up, right? And so, but you do get the feeling that they've had kind of a money button put in front of them, and they're pushing it a lot.
They are jamming it.
They're hitting that button, baby. And
no question.
Yeah. And, the most common way that gets felt for us as Magic fans is just the sheer number of products that we're assaulted with. There's been a rumbling in the community for probably 3, 4, 5 years now about just like, okay, I'm getting a little fatigued here. Like I can no longer keep up with all of the products that they release. And now it's even getting difficult to keep up with just the sets that they release now that they're up to 7 for this year, for example, plus Universes Beyond, adding, those extra sets. So 7 total. And, I often, for me, it's like, there's something for everybody. And if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. And it'll kind of work itself out naturally. That's kind of my broad strokes take on it. I'm not, going to get the pitchforks out or whatever. They are 100%. I'm okay with them offering stuff for sale. I'm also okay with people saying, I'm just not going to buy that. And, they're kind of trying to stress test it and see, how far they can push it. But I do look at it when it comes down to us limited players. Like, how does it trickle down to us? And there's been kind of two big picture things. One of them is generally not knowing where to point my attention, right? I've talked about this, especially with like the Spider-Man set and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set, which were both smaller, had a smaller run on Arena. And I just wasn't sure if I was supposed to be paying a lot of attention to, and if the community, our limited community, would be focusing on these, where this is like right now, everybody knows we're talking about Secrets of Strixhaven, right? There's going to be Cube. We'll talk about that, but we know where our eyes are supposed to be looking. But with the other sets, I'm like, is that necessarily the case? Because like Spider-Man, they jumped ship on that pretty quick. And it turned out that was not the place for our eyes to be looking. In fact, they just ran back to the last great set, which was Final Fantasy in that case. But that wasn't the case with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was the place where the limited eyes were looking. And that is where we wanted to like put our time and effort as far as limited players and the podcasts and that kind of stuff. So it's like, that's one thing. It's just, I feel a little bit like I need somebody to kind of point my head in the direction that it's supposed to be for limited. And then I'll go in that direction. I don't really care where it is. I just need to know, that there is a direction to go. But the other one are money-making things on Arena that are limited focus. And we've got two of them to talk about here. One of them are the Arena Directs and those type of events. And it's really interesting because they've definitely been pushing those. I don't know if you guys noticed, but this last one, which I believe was the third one for Secrets of Strixhaven, right? Didn't they do a play booster and then a play booster?
There have been a ton.
Yeah. And this one was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Like you could play it for 4 days. They used to be 2 days. They added Friday. I'm assuming that they did well on that monetarily. And now they added Monday. That's a lot. I mean, I played a ton of them. I like it. Like this is, I don't want this to be construed as me complaining about it, because I really appreciate any additional avenues for me to play any type of stakes. I love playing with some prizes on the line. So I'm super happy with it. And I'm one of the people that's pushing the button and, and grinding those. So I view it as a good thing, but it is a little bit telling, that it's like, let's add another one. Let's add another day. Let's add another day. It feels like we're going down the same path as the product cycle is, which is how much can we do? And, the question is, I want to get your guys' take, A, just how you feel about that in general. And then B, I always think in poker terms. And, if you hammer a community too much, like you can dry up the resources there. Like that happens.
I mean, you can shear a sheep many times. You can skin it only once.
Yes, Louis.
As they say.
That's very good. So what are you guys' take on it? And is there any concern with, how far they're pushing it with? Are they gonna dry up are we being sheared or are we being skinned here?
I have two things. One thing is that the scariest number that I've seen there, and because someone did some digging on the previous reports, is that the average age of a Magic player in this report was 35. And if you go 2 years back, the average year was 30. Now, I'm not a physicist, so I don't know exactly how time works. But if in 2 years, the average age increased by 5 years, that means that there's something missing at the lower end of the spectrum, which means that Magic is probably losing younger players. And, that brings me hope that maybe in 2 years, I'm going to be an average age Magic player, which would be...
it's catching up to us.
I wouldn't feel like I'm one of the older ones. But in reality, as a company, I would really take a deep look at it. I'm a lecturer in business school right now. And one lecture I'm giving is the lesson of how strategy should not be too complacent with the revenue. And the case study I'm looking at is the sales of the camera film. You, luckily, are a good audience for that because you remember film cameras. Yeah. And they peaked in their sales around 2008. That was, around 2004. Around 2004, they reached the peak sales and it looked like, oh, it's amazing. We're selling more film than ever. But those companies, they were not stupid. They knew that their time is over. They are just reaping the last moments of the market because digital camera was becoming so cheap, so popular, so easy to use. They knew that the camera is going to go obsolete. And I'm a bit worried that WotC is going in the same direction. Is that, okay, sales are good because they have attracted a very affluent part of the market, people who are entering their middle age, who have a lot of disposable income because fewer children are born, they can spend money on their cardboard fascination. And there is also a lot of the things that are printed have to be bought by shops because of the deals that they have and stuff. And I mean, I know that a lot of LGSs, for example, are loaded with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's an LGS problem. It's not necessarily a WotC problem for their bottom line because they've sold it already. So what do they care about? But I think that in the long term, that strategy might be a problematic one. And I especially would really want to see WotC think more about how to attract younger players, because I don't want to be part of a hobby where I'm just this old dinosaur and there is no possible entry for anyone younger, and we're just going to move on as we age and just die with and the game dies with us because there's no one else that is interested in that. So that's what I worry about. If we're talking about the Arena Direct model, I think it is pretty predatory, to be fair. Mm-hmm. I give myself limits on how much I play. And for example, I'm one of the limits I have is that I only play the ones that the rewards are collector boosters, just because they have slightly better EV, especially when it comes to the Universes Beyond sets. And I don't play for the play boosters. Also because my friends from Cornwall are just a bunch of so-and-sos, and I can never organize 8 people to play a draft. And it only, it is frustrating because you want to organize a draft, you get 3 boxes, you get the spot, you get everything, and it's always, oh no, this Sunday I can't, oh no, this Sunday I can't, on this Saturday I can't. And it just has so much frustration that I said, okay, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to play for collector boxes. I'm going to crack them. In fact, my collector box arrived today, and I just cracked it earlier during the day. It was not the best box, but it was not the worst box.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one?
No, it was Strixhaven already from the first direct of
you already
the
got
collector
your box?
boxes.
Oh, man.
Well, that
I haven't.
Yeah. I got mine, yeah. But
you
got like 3 or 4, no? Louis, did you get yours? Too soon?
I haven't won a box in years.
He doesn't have the time to devote. I mean, I found that I'll talk about it in a minute. Go ahead, Sierkovitz.
Honestly, Marshall, it's less time and more that I have not been hitting these as hard because they broke me. I just lost too much.
Yeah,
I'll probably come back and if there's like a limited qualifier or something, I'll play in those. But I'll probably try to come back and play whatever the next format is. But yeah, no, I've been getting kind of demolished.
I had the same experience as you did because you were talking about it a couple of episodes back about this collector Arena Direct and that you were going like 0-2, 0-2, 0-2. I had the same experience in this set. It just few of them went really well, but the rest of them are just it took me literally 4 minutes sometimes to play the whole run.
Oh yeah. These have felt high variance, especially for sealed, which already has that high variance, especially with how many rares you can open or not open in these pools. I mean, some of them have 12 and you're just you get a couple of good ones together and it's like, okay, off we go. And other times it's 6 with 3 bad ones. And you're like, okay, I got to try to figure out a pool. I've had a weird experience because I've definitely experienced what you guys are talking about. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was like that for me. I felt like I was just scrapping out just to try to break even or get a box to kind of finish up the thing. But I was having so many complete no gem run duds that it was wow, this is really, really tough. And but I have to say with Secrets of Strixhaven, that hasn't been the case. I've done all of the directs that they've done and I've had the same experience in all of them, which is basically I am able to have reasonable gem runs often enough that it feels like I'm probably bleeding a little bit, but I mean, it's not, I don't have to do the walk of shame very often where I reload on gems. It's just sort of keeping me floating, because the funny part is that if you do win the boxes, you don't get any gems. So those are actually your biggest hit to the.
It is a disappointing part.
Gem, yeah. I'm always wait a minute. But I have found that getting to 3, 4, or 5 wins has happened to me way, way, way more in this set. And then every once in a while, like for the collector booster box one, I won 3 of them, but I played all 3 days in between rounds at the PT when we were covering it. And I played a lot of them. I mean, I played a ton. I actually thought I was going to win more than that after the first day. But then it turns out day 1 was actually kind of the easy day because all the pros were in the room with me playing in the pro tour, like 10 feet away. And then all of a sudden on day 2, it was like, oh, these queues got a lot harder. Weird. And I ended up winning 3 for that, but I played a ton. But like I said, so many of my runs were 3 wins, 5 wins, 4 runs that it didn't really feel like that. And I did this one on the 4-day one on the weekend, and it was the same thing. I actually ended up winning 7 boxes, but those are the play booster boxes where you get 2 of them for winning 7 and 1 of them for winning 6, and they're worth way, way less. Like EV wise, I think that this was one that really stood out, Sierky, because these play boosters aren't worth very much at all. But I just like feeling something, and playing for that. But I have to say, having experienced both, where one of them I felt a lot more comfortable and was able to kind of just stay in the fight long enough to like occasionally get a box here or there, but feel like I wasn't just bleeding, felt so much better than the alternative. Though I did look it up. I had AI run. I was like, what win percentage do I need to be profitable if this is the setup and these are the scenarios? And it was interesting, it was in the mid 60s, is when you start getting to feel like pretty dang good. If you get up into the upper 60s and anywhere in the 70 range, like you're doing really well, but it falls off quickly. Maybe Sierko, about how these patterns work or whatever, but it did feel like, even if you're like a pretty good player, like high 50s, low 60s, like somewhere in that range, you're a pretty big dog. Like you're getting like, it is going to be 1 out of 10 runs that you get to that you get to the box. Or
what if you're winning 37% of your matches?
Yeah, that's going to be really rough. Yeah, but I mentioned,
there are people like that in the. I mean, when you look at the
one of them's on the call with
there
you.
are people that
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, Luis. That
he's hosting.
That you said that because I did have that feeling, and I mentioned it on the show before. But I had that same feeling. I am just getting absolutely walked in all of this is so rough. Like I had gotten a couple of boxes. This is in TMNT, but I'm just like, man, I just feel like I'm just banging my head against the wall and getting nowhere. And it felt like there was like a disproportionate level of like 0-2s or 1-2s where it just kind of felt hopeless. But in the last, say half a day of me playing or the last half of my session or whatever, I just said, I'm going to just use something really simple. I'm just going to mark down my wins and losses on a Post-it note in front of me. That's it. Nothing, no deep dive, just marking it down. And it was really interesting because I had that exact feeling. I didn't do very well. I felt like I was floundering. And it turned out, I think it was something like 30-ish. I can't remember exactly games.
If only there was like an automatized way of marking all your games in limited on arena.
I know it's just a pain in the butt.
Invents that,
it's a pain in the back. It's a pain in the butt for Mac because you have to do some command line stuff to get it installed, and I'm always too lazy.
You have to copy paste the command line and paste it in the terminal.
But then you have to do it again if it ever goes away, or sometimes when you update, and I just get lazy. But at any rate, I wrote it down on a Post-it note, old school style, and it turns out I was 16-16, which that is lower than my normal win rate, right? Yeah. But it was not, it felt like I won, like what you were saying, Luis, like I'm winning 1 out of 3 games or so, like I'm just absolutely getting rocked here. And it turns out, I wasn't doing as well as I would normally do, but it wasn't actually, it was 50-50. Like I was splitting my matches with people. And I found that really interesting because it didn't feel like that. I would have guessed much, much lower than what it was. What about Luis, what do you think about what Sierko said about the youth thing? Because that seems...
I think it's very real. Like I think that if if for to the degree that the folks at Wizards are keeping track, are looking towards the future, and I understand the incentive structures are not always lined up to have that work out well, because
if the future is the next 3 months.
Yeah, right. It seems like a pretty big concern to me. Like, you just look at this and you're just like, okay, well, what are our players going to look like in 4 years and 6 years and 8 years, 10 years? And yeah, I agree. It'd be cool to see, newer faces in, because part of it is like, as my kids get older and start getting into, the kids talk about Pokemon. They don't really talk about Magic. That's just not a thing that the kids the youth are playing these days.
Are you surprised if a prerequisite of playing Standard is either a playset of Cubs or Urborits or Quantum Riddlers or whatever? Like, no kid can afford that.
That kind of doesn't matter. For part of it, because some amount of this is just what are kids playing casually, and Pokemon has a lot of other things going for it. Like, people, like, I remember, like, as kids we used to collect Pokemon cards to look at the cards, not really to play with them. And Pokemon is obviously so much more enmeshed.
The adults too, by the way.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, but I think that your point is definitely true, Sierkovitz, that being, the cost is certainly prohibited to why a 12-year-old wouldn't compete in Standard. But I don't even think they get to that point, because already Magic isn't appealing enough to the younger generations, that it might be somewhat downstream of the price issue. But I think it's all together, just not the package you want. Yeah.
I mean, we're getting Hulk. Let's see how the Marvel will change it. I'm actually looking forward to the set.
Oh, and we should mention that too. Didn't they announce that the sets are going to be mirrored with paper?
Yes.
Now? Thank God.
I will only have to not remember one set of card names.
Aren't they fixing that too?
No, they fix it. Yeah, there's going to be the same names in paper.
So what's the set
Arena
that you don't have to remember?
No. Normally, because with Spider-Man, I didn't remember two sets of card names, because, of course, I don't remember card names anyway.
I see. I did not get you. I thought you were saying that Spider-Man was the one that you have to ignore, but I think they're mirroring that. I don't know what kind of negotiations happened behind the scenes on that, but I am very grateful that they did, because that was completely untenable. I mean, that was just such a bad experience for everybody. And what we're talking about is that for the Marvel sets, there seemed to be some type of legal copyright, I don't know, something conflict with making paper Magic cards and then also making the cards on Arena and Magic Online. And the result, of course, was what we saw in the Spider-Man set, which was that it was a completely different set for Arena with a different name, different artwork, and different card names, but everything else was the same. So it was functionally the same. But I mean, it made it really difficult to enjoy. It also was confusing. If you were an Arena player, you had to have this translation layer in paper that was really annoying. I'll tell you, I was really nervous about it, because I didn't want to have to remember this stuff for the Pro Tour, where the practice I get is almost exclusively on Arena. And now I have to, and it's already really hard to memorize all the card names from the whole set in 10 days from when it comes out to when we're in the booth. And now you're going to add a layer of, oh, and by the way, none of those cards actually have names that you like. That is just absolutely brutal way to do it. And I'm really glad to see that they came to terms one way or the other with that.
Do you want to know a fun fact about directs? When I was talking about the how people can easily spend money on that. Someone in the 17 lands, I'm not gonna name a shame, but someone in the leaderboard of 17 lands used 820 bullets to get 36 boxes. 800, not in this all through the directs.
Yeah, but when you think it wasn't in one weekend.
Okay. But when you calculate it, it's 5 million gems. 5 million gems is a lot of gems.
Wow.
This is how, the system can work with some people. And I'm really hoping that person could easily afford that, and was just,
You would
fun.
assume so.
Is that profitable?
But, no.
The 36 boxes is not enough to make up for it. It's probably not close.
5 million gems is what? $24,000 roughly for 36 boxes. I think you can buy them in retail for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
even if they were literally all collector and all of the best one. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, I'm curious to see where that goes. Like I said, I don't want to sound too down about it because I really like that we have more access to higher level events, and I think that's really cool. But you can feel that the scales kind of creaking back over as they add more days, more times, more events as we go. And speaking of that, we do have this new draft format on Arena, or draft structure, maybe I should say. It's called Contender Draft. And one way to think about it, I think, Sierkovitz, you described it as double the cost, not quite double the reward.
Yeah, I think that, and it's also a steeper price structure. So if you go 6-7 wins, you win actually more than you would have won in the normal draft. Proportionally, it's double the price. But you win more than double if you have 6 or 7 wins. But if you have especially fewer than 4, you lose way more. So it's not going to be for everyone. I'm probably going to fire a couple of those just to see what's going on, just to have the thrill of getting the achievement in my achievement panel when I trophy it. But yeah, it is a steeper price structure, and steeper price structure disproportionately promotes people with extremely high win rates.
Yeah, like Luis.
So there is definitely risk.
So it's called Contender Draft, and the way it works is if you get a losing record, meaning 0 wins and 0 to 2 wins, you get no reward at all. If you get to 3 wins, you get 1,400 of your 3,000 gems or 20,000 gold entry. Is that right? 10,000 gold, 20,000?
Yeah, which is worse, because if it was proportional to the normal draft, it would be 2,000 gems. So 600 less than you would have gotten from.
Right. And then
double the normal draft.
Right. And then at the 4-win slot, you get 2,800 gems. So you're not quite even.
No, that's exactly even, because for 4 wins, you win 1,400 gems in best of 1.
Yeah. So it's even with the price structure, but not even with your buy-in. Totally.
You double, because 1,400 times 2, 2,800. So exactly the same as you would have gotten.
Right, but you do have to pay
4-3 twice in the.
I'm saying you have to pay 3,000, and it's
and you don't in the normal you pay 1,500. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, you don't.
That's all I'm saying. You're just not exactly even. But then you get. So for the 3 wins, you also get 3 MTG Arena packs of whatever format you're in. You get 6 for the 4-win slot. For 5 wins, you do profit. You get to 3,200 gems and 8 arena packs. But you may notice that 3,200 is still barely above, and that's because they bumped everything up to the 6 and 7 win slot. It's very top heavy. 6 wins, you get 4,200 gems and 10 arena packs plus 4 mythic packs. I don't even know what those are. I assume they just have more.
I would just value them at 0, though. I have every single card on Arena. All I do is draft. I don't even play Construction Arena, basically.
Dude, same. At this point. I mean, all of us probably have these huge troves of rare and mythic wild cards, right? I mean, the use of them, for us limited players, if you don't play Constructed, is to craft the rest of the set so that the future copies that you would open turn into a small gem payout over time, which is useful. That is a good thing. But that's like all they're good for. And then this is the big one. If you get to 7 wins, you get 7,200 gems, 12 arena packs, 10 mythic packs, and you get a draft contender title, which you can see on your little.
Yay! I can display it. I still prefer my Mind Sculptor title, but
there you go. So I don't know. I mean, this is cool, right? Like, I mean, this is kind of for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I like it, because I think one of the patterns I can get into with Arena is not caring that much about how my drafts go, and this would help negate that to some degree.
Yeah, just to keep you on the edge a bit. That's true.
Would you jump into these by default, Luis? Like, would you rather just play these?
Yeah, I think so. Unless I had a specific reason not to, I guess.
Yeah, I mean they cost more and have higher prizes. They're certainly set up for the Luis Scott-Vargases of the world. I do wonder if it is compelling to, like our audience, like draft enthusiasts, pretty good players, but not LSVs, you know, and, or, you know, me and Sierkovitz, for example. Like, Sierko, are you planning on playing these?
I'm going to play a couple. I'm going to see how it works. But I think that this is like 65% win rate people kind of format should be. But of course, the problem is that if only 65% win rate people are going to start playing it, then your 65% win rate is meaningless because it will equilibrate with the other 65% win rate people that will play it. So it's determined to be seen. I think that the trap of that is if let's call them scrubs, not to offend Paul.
Wow. Sidewinder.
Out of nowhere. No, if there's going to be two queues where like the top players are going to play those more expensive drafts and people who want to play in peace and not to spend too many gems in the risky top heavy price structure are going to play lower, the win rates within that queue are going to be around 56, 57. And all of a sudden everyone is going to be in the back because of the steep price structure, unless you spike a couple of them in a row by fluking them. So that's the risk that you're running into this top heavy structures. If they're going to select too much for very powerful players or very strong players, the whole benefit of having top heavy structure disappears because you only get spikes.
Luis, is there any benefit to playing against better players for higher stakes?
I mean, you get better. Like it is better testing or training. In terms of win rate, no, you'd rather play against weaker players. You'll win more if that's what you care more about. So, it will be interesting to see how these play out. These sorts of things can go like not that well sometimes.
Yeah, because the other question, I don't know the answer to it yet, but I'm making assumptions. My assumption is that you're drafting against other players who are also in the contender draft, and then you're also only playing against other players.
That I don't know, because normally they mix queues, I think.
I know.
think that they do mix the queues.
Exactly.
Drafts.
So I don't know that either, but I'm making the assumption because it would be weird if you got to draft against non-contender people and or play against non-contender people.
Marshall, I can tell you one thing for sure. If it's not, we're going to know very quickly from Alsa.
Oh, really?
It's just going to look very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's how we know that the best of 3 queues are separate, because the Alsas are very different between the best of 3 and best of 1. So this we know. But we do know that they sometimes dipped the second day Arena Open drafts into the normal queues because they had almost identical Alsas between them. So that's the easy part to figure out.
Okay, cool.
So
yeah, so
we can
we'll
speculate all we want. Data will confirm. Don't you worry about it.
Okay, that's good.
It confirmed that the mythics were dropping at double the rate in whatever set it was.
Yeah, because I mean, generally speaking, you know, I remember back on the Magic Online days, they had a similar flatter payout, and then they had a higher, you know, win rate.
Yeah, the 8-4s versus the 4-3-2-2s. That was a classic one.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, that one was even more top heavy than this is. And yeah, it would be kind of a graduation level thing where you're like, okay, I think I'm good enough to start playing in the 8-4s, you know, and then it would, how well are you doing in those type of deal? And, you know, considering, how long one of those drafts took on Magic Online at the time and the pay that you had to put into them, they felt appropriate. This one, I'm curious. I don't know. I'm definitely going to try them out though. And we'll keep it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm generally, depends on what you want to, what is your priority. But I think that after what we talked about, the people dropping out, because that's what the change of the average age of the player indicates, with people dropping out of the game, despite the revenue staying high, I would rather invest in more flat pricing structures, because that's what keeps people going on. You are talking about it, like how nice it is that when you finish your Arena Direct run at the gems that allow you to shoot another bullet out. This is what is happening then. Totally. And I do know that, for example, my pre-release in my LGS, there everyone wins 2 packs, because the point of the pre-release shouldn't be that someone gets a box and then someone gets nothing. Everyone gets their 1 or 2 packs.
I don't know what kind of pre-releases you play at.
Well, the pre-releases that actually draw people to play the game.
No, you're totally right.
We cannot
it's
find
funny
8 people,
because
I know.
When I first started playing, pre-releases were kind of like a big tournament in the Bay Area.
Oh, yeah,
700-person pre-releases, and you would play 9 rounds and stuff like that. It was just a very
Keep in
different
mind,
vibe.
I was playing pre-releases before you were playing pre-releases, which means that in Warsaw it was 8 rounds plus then the top 8, and then you played for boxes, and of course the top 8 also got the T-shirt, which was nice.
Yeah,
T-shirts, by the way, great prize.
yeah,
Bring
that is a
back
good
T-shirts.
price. Yeah, so we'll see how this. But you can see that they're definitely taking a shot at higher stakes and more top-heavy payout type stuff, and we'll see if that pays off for them. It's definitely a double-edged sword. I think it's really cool to offer this stuff on Arena, but at the same time, it does start to shut the door on people not being able to enter, and that's long-term.
Yeah, I think that if draft has a problem, it's not with the number of grinders; it's more with the number of entry-level players.
Yeah.
I see that in the shop. There's people playing Commander, and they will never touch draft because there is just not a good format for them, and I don't know how to solve it.
Right.
I have no idea, and any advice I would give would be probably
Tell you what,
dumb.
WotC's thinking about the same thing, you know?
I know,
Yeah.
I know. I'll leave it to them and let them figure that one out.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I think that we will see in the next couple of years. I know that they are aware of that. They're not stupid. The people that are running the numbers behind the company. It's just that they are running also a very difficult data set because figuring out anything from this confounding, like you can do analysis of the sales of the packs, and then you will see, Lost Caves of Ixalan were selling pretty well. And why would they happen? Did they appeal in the art, or did they appeal with the card quality and stuff like that? Will they account for me, like probably opening half a box over the course of 3 months because A, that was one of the 3 sets available in my LGS, and B, for the lols, I just wanted to open my playset of Deep Cavern Bats by opening packs rather than buying singles.
Right.
How can they account for that kind of a degenerate player buying
Right.
packs for no apparent reason whatsoever?
Well, and then the next set you might just not do any of that, right? And just disappear.
Maybe because my LGS also doesn't have it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes, but I will definitely keep my eye open for that, for opportunities for new players to come in. I always do that for the podcast. I'm always thinking about that when I'm in the booth. If somebody's relatively new to the game, if they watch the PT, are they going to be able to keep up in any way, shape, or form? I'll try to give them a little bit of a handhold here and there. Obviously, we have to cater to our core audience there too, but that doesn't mean shutting out people who are curious about what we've got going on in the community here. One thing, Sierkovitz, more strategically related that we wanted to talk to you about was some of the differences between, there's a lot of soup available in this format, but it does have slightly different ingredients and slightly different flavors to it. Primarily, we see a lot of blue being paired with either red or green, sometimes both, sometimes a whole bunch of extra colors attached. But there are differences between those two baselines.
Yeah. And so there are a couple of small things. Like one thing that I want maybe to address a bit is that people sometimes look at the win rate data and they, for example, they will see, Arcane Omens is just broken in Prismari decks, and why would that be? And of course, I'm not going to pretend Arcane Omens is a good card and it has a high win rate, but there is a bit more in that data than people will see at the first glance. Because they will see, we have all the Prismari cards and then in uncommon, and then there's the Arcane Omens at 63% win rate. How is that possible? It's a black card. Well, obviously it's splashed, and 17 lens data will take the splashed cards in the archetype if they are played frequently enough, and Arcane Omens, of course, will be splashed frequently, and converged decks will often only have minor splashes of those converged cards and not much outside of that. And those will qualify as 2-color decks. But another problem in that is that when we look at the win rate of Prismari decks, it will be somewhere around 54-55% currently.
Mm-hmm.
But Arcane Omens don't go in every Prismari deck. They won't go into your failed attempt at building Prismari aggro. They won't go into your 2-color Prismari deck. They will go in a specific converge cluster of Prismari decks.
This
and
is also a funny card because it also frequently shows up as the only card of its color in a deck that otherwise maybe isn't even playing that many other colors. It's like number one on that list.
Yeah,
exactly. But those converged Prismari decks will have an elevated win rate already because they're just the better way of drafting Prismari. The multicolor decks have a slightly higher win rate. So they will start with a higher baseline, and then Arcane Omens being a decent card in them, or even way above average card in them, it will be super amplified compared to the rest. And that's why you will see those cards being a bit of outliers, that they already live in this small cluster of better decks, and they're good in those better decks. So that's one thing. But the other thing that I started seeing when I started observing those multicolor decks is a pretty consistent trend. And first thing I saw is that I do this analysis every set almost, where I took every color pair that is relevant in the set, and I see how much above the baseline win rate does each card win in that particular color pair. And I first think I saw that was a bit surprising to me was Strixhaven Sky Coach, which we know is a good card. It's actually good in any kind of color combination in the set. It's just generically a good card. But what I noticed is that Izzet decks with Strixhaven Sky Coach, when you draw a Strixhaven Sky Coach in an Izzet deck, it will increase your win rate by 2.6 percentage points. If it happens in Simic, it's 5.4. And that wouldn't tell me that much. I saw the same thing for Sundering Archaic. It was plus 4% in Izzet and plus 6% in Simic. And on and on. And some cards had a slightly different proportion, like Potioner's Trove, the card we talked about on the Cracker Pack. It's plus 4% in Izzet, but only plus 2.5 in Simic. And I sort of started building this vision, and I looked at the cards through that lens. It's just everything that could gain extra values if you have creatures in your deck will have a slightly higher win rate in Simic versions of the multicolor decks. Anything that has to do with spells that are non-creature spells will have a slightly better win rate in Izzet decks.
Okay.
And that means Strixhaven Sky Coach is good on rate as the artifact that fetches you a land and then occasionally will turn into a flying creature. But if you have already creatures in the deck, it will turn into that creature much easier. That would explain the difference between Simic and Izzet. Simic has more creatures. It wants to play Environmental Scientist, which is perfect for crewing it already. And that's why you get this plus 5 percentage point win rate. Sundering Archaic in an Izzet deck is a good creature because it will kill something, most likely. And it's a threat that needs to be dealt with. The issue with it is that it probably will be dealt with because it's like a second creature that you play all game.
Right.
And the opponent is sitting there with your hand.
Removal. Yeah.
Exactly, with removal. Unless you cast Arcane Omens, which means that they had a handful of removal.
Yes.
And that's what makes Arcane Omens so good, is that you clean the slate. They were keeping all that removal that would deal with your threats in their hand. Now they don't have anything of that, and you can just start deploying the threats. But in Simic, of course, you will deploy other threats that they have to deal with, and therefore the Sundering Archaic will survive more, and that's why it's slightly better in those decks. It's good in both, it's just slightly better in the Simic deck. And it same proportion with Transcendent Archaic, the 7 mana 6/6 that draws you X cards and then you discard 2. It's plus 2 in Izzet and plus 5 in Simic. Because again, it's better. Even the Rancorous Archaic, the 5 mana one, is minus 0.8 in Izzet. It's probably the worst, converged payoff. But it's exactly at 0 in Simic, so slightly better there. And then, even cards that are not great, like Diary of Dreams. Sorry, I know it's probably
I haven't put that card in my
topic.
deck in a long time at this point.
There you go. In Izzet decks, if you draw it, it gives you minus 1.7 percentage in your win rate. So it's actually detrimental to be playing it. But if you play it in Simic, it's minus 5.7, which is big difference again.
Wow.
So even though it's not great in Izzet, it's slightly less bad. And I see those trends on and on and on when you look at those cards. Like Dawning Archaic is actually a good card in Izzet because you play so many spells, and it's not a good card in Simic, which means that Simic will not have the density of spells that you want to have for Dawning Archaic if you're building a good version of it. What are the blue cards we can have that are interesting in there? There's definitely some. Apart from run, like at common, apart from run behind and essence scatter, most cards will be in one of those shells. Like quick study better in Izzet than Simic because it's a spell.
Yeah.
Hydro Channeler is okay in Izzet. I mean, okay, passable in Izzet, and it's actively not good in Simic because you will not be able to use that mana for most of the things.
All those precious creatures, you can't cast it.
But like a card like Chase Inspiration, it has +2 percentage points in Simic, which is a big suggestion that you want to be playing creatures if you get your dive down is a good card. In Izzet, it's not a good card at all.
No
so
targets,
exactly, not frequently it will target something good.
Well, the only time I run it in is if I get an exhibitionist.
yeah, exactly. And then Divergent Equation will have +4 in Izzet and +2 in Simic. It's still fine in Simic, but it's so much better in Izzet because again, spells themed. So based on that, you have this kind of like duality of those soupy decks where Simic should probably focus more on creatures, ETBs, protecting them in some way and getting value of your creatures and actually putting a more value in archaics. Also, like if you have like Snarl Song is going to be great in both of those decks because it's the spell, but it does make creatures. So and those creatures are also going to be more likely to survive in your Simic decks if you have other creatures that your opponent had to deal with before.
Yeah, I've had that happen a lot where I play a Snarl Song for 4 or 5. And my opponent goes like, end step,
like,
kill
finally, a target.
And then they untap and kill the other one.
Years.
Yeah. And normally you'd be like pretty thrilled with that outcome, right? Like they used 2 full on removal spells to kill your thing. They had to spend, 9 mana versus your 6. But at that stage of the game and with what their hand looked like, you're like, I guess I gained some life. Like,
yeah, just like I think that this is like one of the cards that is the most symptomatic of what I was telling. Flow State. Yeah, it's a good card, we know. But if you don't get the full benefits, it's just Anticipate, which is fine, but it's not like amazing. In Izzet, it is +3 percentage points in improvement on the win rate. In Simic, it's 0. 3 percentage points difference because Flow State is amplifying the density of your spells because you really need to have density of sorceries and density of instants. And if you have almost all spells in your deck, probably you're going to have enough of those and you'll be able to get the full value from Flow State. But every creature you put in your deck is drastically reducing your odds of getting the full value from Flow State. And then, of course, you can hold it in your hand and cast it when you can. But that means that you sort of semi-mulliganed yourself for large portion of the game. So this is like a very good kind of symptom card of this duality between Simic and Izzet-based 5-color decks.
And is your recommendation based on this then to lean into this, like to be much more willing to go? Because is this a symptom of Simic decks tend to have some more creatures than the ones, or is it like, no, you actually want to do the creature thing in the Simic version and you want to do the opposite?
It's a symptom of Green's fixing is quite a lot of it is already in creatures. And because you already have quite a lot of fixing in creatures, you might need to add... You might not have that many synergies that are linked to spells. Like, for example, this Divergent Equation is not going to be as good.
Right.
So you might as well want to try to lean a bit heavier into the creature-based strategies. And Archaics are great creatures as a top end for that. Because Archaics don't require you to have any spells that are non-creature.
Okay.
They just require you to fix well. And because of that, those Archaics are the more creatures you have in your deck, the better those Archaics are going to be. Because if you're putting pressure with with other things that you're doing, they will have to be dealt with, and therefore those Archaics are also going to be much more likely to survive. Plus, green and blue also offer good creature protection if you need in dive down and royal roll, or the dive down is called to chase something. Yeah.
But the thing to avoid, interestingly, in either deck is that middle ground, right? Like if you have a 9 creature version of either of these decks, like something went wrong.
Yeah, probably to some extent. I'm pretty sure that you can have a Simic spell-based version if you get particular combination of spells, and there are some spells that make creatures as well. So you can probably, Divergent Equation is still okay in green-blue decks because again you have converged spells that you'll be putting, and a lot of them are actual spells. You will have some other removal spells that you can get back, card draw from blue. So it's fine, but you definitely want to be more creature-centric. And because it's creature-centric, you may want to rethink how you're building your deck. And for example, if you started your draft by picking those archaics because you wanted to draft 5-color Converge and you saw some archaics and you started like that, then you want to maybe position yourself more towards the green version of the deck rather than the red version of the deck. Also, if you're playing creatures, especially at all the spots in the mana curve, you don't need to focus so hard on cheap interaction. Red has plenty of that. It has Tome Blast, it has the red-blue thing that deals 3 damage, it has Prismari Charm, it has the Burst Lightning. So it's very good covered with that. That's why it doesn't need cheap creatures, and you can play this all-spell strategy. Green just has solid 2-drops that it can trade off, and then you don't need that much cheap interaction. You can focus your interaction on the more expensive things.
I have a question about how you get into Simic. So what is pulling you this direction as opposed to something like Prismari?
Yeah, so for me, and I ended up in Simic decks several times, and I ended up in pretty good versions of Simic Converge decks a couple of times. For me, it was not what ended me up in Simic. I started blue, basically. What I was not getting from Prismari. I'm very scared of playing a Prismari deck if I don't get cheap interaction. And there were drafts where I just end of pack 1, I'm stuck with blue cards. I maybe have a couple of top-end Converge / more expensive red spells, but I don't have any of that cheap interaction. Second pack, I don't see still the cheap interaction, but I see Environmental Scientist, and that's one of the ways that you can enter those things. I'm still going to be happy playing Snarsong in both of those decks. Yeah, but late Paradox Surveyor, for example.
Yeah, if you're not getting Vibrant Outbursts or Tome Blasts, you can just play Random Idiots instead, for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned
Proctor's Gaze. Those cards that going slightly later, and I can sort of pick them for free, and then getting a couple of maybe a Green Bomb or something, and then all of a sudden I'm in there, and then I just or if I start with Archaics.
Proctor's Gaze is a card that pulls me into green pretty frequently.
It does too.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the Archaics potentially pulling you in. If you pick up a couple of those early, that might be a signal to go over. What about the creatures that don't, which are just kind of good? I'm thinking like Pest Brood Sloth, like these type of things. Do these
Pest
pull
Brood
you
Sloth
in
is just
at
a good
some point?
creature.
Yeah, it
doesn't pull me, but it's very often I would just pick it because it's a good card. That's as much.
And if you end up with a couple of
uncommon creatures.
And if you end up with a couple of green of those, then that might be how you could end up in green blue versus blue red.
Because at uncommon, the only better green cards than the Sloth is Snarsong and the Environmental Scientist, both of which are wrong in terms of how good they are.
Right. Those are completely dumb versions. Yeah, that's good stuff.
It's not in a bad company. It's weaker than that, but it's still good, and it keeps me flexible. And sometimes this is another thing that if you start something Witherbloom adjacent, but you see that black is not flying, then naturally you might want to lean and try to do something in the blue space. That's another way of getting in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. You start embracing the paradox, pick 10, and you're like, all right, well, we'll just go over here then instead. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's been really interesting to see how the format's played out because, when they put all their eggs on just 5 archetypes, it's pretty typical that if they stick the landing on it, which they did in this set, that we will see different versions of archetypes within. And it's really funny because technically the ones you're talking about are 2 separate archetypes, right? Blue-green and blue-red are 2 of the supported color pairs.
There is a big overlap, but they have a big overlap. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see how that plays out. As we go through.
You know me, Marshall. I I talk about data, but in my personal drafting, I definitely experiment. So I've been playing around with Boros combat tricks when I was playing, the Molten Core Maestros and the guys that have prowess +1/+1 and sometimes get double strike, and pairing them up with things like bulk up, for example, and using things like living history to also pump my creatures. So I created those 2 drops that can hit for 10 in one turn or something.
What is I know you often will latch onto a card or kind of a fringe strategy in a format. Do you have one for this? Is there a Sierkovitz go-to, if I see it, I'm doing it type card?
There is not enough, because the 5-color build around is relatively straightforward and obviously good. There is not much that I do, and the strategies that I really wanted to test, they very rarely come together.
This is not a heavy build around format. It's much more synergy stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So that's my problem. So I don't know, but I definitely try to be open to find niche builds of decks and try to figure out maybe unintuitive combinations of card. I don't know, what did I do? So last time I drafted something more on the spicy side. Is I basically first pick Silver Quill, the dragon.
Yeah.
And it's actually not a great card if you play Silver Quill, ironically.
Fun. Yeah.
But
in Silver Quill.
White,
gotcha, yeah.
Yeah. But White was very much close, and then I started seeing Bogwater Lumerate after Bogwater Lumerate after Bogwater Lumerate. And I ended up playing this kind of Abzan concoction with a bunch of Witherbloom stuff, and crucially, a couple of knockout maneuvers.
Oh, okay.
And lots of things that made pests, including teacher pests. I had the Studios first year, a bunch of 1/1s. And Silver Quill is so much better in Witherbloom deck, for example.
That's funny.
And for me, most of the time, it was not a 4-drop even, because it technically costs 4 mana, but most of the time it was turn 7, Silver Quill into knockout maneuver with casualty, kill 2 of your things. I have a 6/6 flying vigilant dragon, and also because my deck was very assertive, before I cast that Silver Quill, you needed to spend quite a lot of effort in removing my previous creatures, so that Silver Quill lived to tell the tale of how good it is, quite surprisingly quite a lot of time. And if they managed to kill everything, I just could drop Hewin and make a bunch of pests and go wide, because this is how you get a lot of pests in this deck, by playing a very creature heavy deck and having Lewin.
And Lewin to clean up the mess.
It should be this is you're a big fan of Wales, no? In Welsh should be pronounced Hewin. And that's how you should.
Okay,
Hewin,
I like that. Yeah. What's your take on the format,
Double
big
L.
picture? Not necessarily strategically, but just are you enjoying it? Do you like it? Do you think it did what they wanted it to do?
I think it's a fun format. I think that I don't particularly understand, I understand lore-wise, but I don't understand particularly why do we get 3 guild sets in a row? It's okay. This one is complex.
It's very weird.
It is very weird.
So this is one thing that I'm slightly we've been through Turtles, we've been through Lorwyn Eclipse. We had something just before that, so we have a bunch of the 5-color pair sets in a row, and it's is that the new world that we're living in, or is it just a fluke because of the moving things around?
I think it's that, because we had Spider-Man, which was
Spider-Man was also the
and then Eternities wasn't.
But this one is very good. By the way, the beautiful piece of data also is that in Lorwyn, the 5 non-supported color pairs were played average at 3-4% of the games of each of them. So that was their average. Normally, if you have 10 color pairs, 10% of the 2-color paired games should be of each color, and that's when it's balanced. In Lorwyn, it was more 16-4 for the 5 supported versus 5 non-supported. In Turtles, it was more 18-2.
Mm-hmm. That tracks.
And here it was 20 and almost 0.
And 0.
So this one was the purest of the guild sets. And I think that maybe because of that, those different sub-builds of color pairs could work. because they completely abandoned the idea of you being able to play the non-supported color pairs because of the density of the multicolor spell. So that's a nice progression that we get from Lorwyn that actually supported quite a lot of those non-supported color pairs to some extent.
Yeah.
It's this funny one that absolutely doesn't allow it.
It's really funny you say that because I can certainly imagine that. Because, Lorwyn had literal traps, like gold or hybrid cards.
Giants and stuff like that.
That would lead you down a deck that didn't exist. And then TMNT
with giants and fairies. Thank you very much.
And then TMNT didn't incentivize you to do it. So you were like, okay, I'm just probably not going to the vast majority of the time. But this set has all the soup decks would just scoop up all that. Like nobody would ever just play only what percentage of decks are only 2 colors? Like it's not very high in this format because 2 of the 5 really encourage you to spread your wings and fly and splash at least something. Even if it's just one converge card, it's so common to see that, and then, many of those decks are playing, 4 to 5 colors as well. So I would see very little room for like a straight Gruul deck or something in this format. You're just not.
Well, there in 17 lands there's 151 games registered for Gruul decks, pure Gruul decks. There is 149,000 games for Boros. So that's the disproportion we're talking about, around 1,000 times difference.
Yeah, that is.
And it's also funny that the pure Simic decks, 28,000 games, Simic and Splash, 57,000 games. But with Boros, it's 150,000 to 30,000. So completely lopsided proportions for splashing or not splashing between those two.
That's completely nuts. All right.
Yeah, but I think that it is definitely an interesting puzzle, this format. If you want to do something out of ordinary, you can draft on rails and that's not a problem. But if you want to there was a great episode of Rough Drafts, another mate's podcast about different weird builds. And they were talking about the Simic tempo that is built around small creatures, 2 drops, and then counter spells.
I have a deck I posted on Twitter a bit ago. It was a Simic tempo deck that had Royal Treatment and +0/+3 and just some good quality creatures, and some counter spells, Spell Pierce, that kind of thing. And that deck, it was 7-0. The deck was awesome.
Yeah. You can build it, and you will not always get the 7-0 version, but it does exist. And it's something that you can put in your repertoire once you know that it exists. I'm actually preparing an episode for this week, and I went for my clustering strategies to try to find those secret archetypes that are hidden there somewhere in the data. But definitely the tempo deck is in that data. I found a cluster that contains cards that indicate that it's a real thing.
That's cool.
It's just that, it requires some tinkering, some figuring it out, and
secret archetype.
For example, for the cards from the pack that we had, the Inkshape Demonstrator, the 4-drop.
Yeah.
There's a grindier version of Silver Quill that I sometimes comes together for me that has this specific card that is super hard and annoying to kill. And I also like the 6-drop Troll, the 5/4 that reanimates something when you cast a spell. Because if there is one thing that is more annoying than the 3/4 lifelink, often lifelinker that is hard to kill, it's to getting it back with a creature that is also hard to kill.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck in those traps. And I found this kind of a grindy version of Silver Quill working for me a couple of times. So
that's cool.
There are different builds. There's options.
Yeah, that's definitely the upside to a format like this.
Just don't forget that the most obvious versions are easier to build and don't have the fancy syndrome. I have that. I'm paying gems to get the fancy card syndrome because I'm testing things. But if you want to keep your gems in order, well, make sure that you play the streamlined version of the archetype and don't go full mad scientist.
You don't need to go fancy play syndrome on it. All right, let's call it a show there. Sierkovitz, thanks a lot for taking the time to hang out with us. We always appreciate it. Where can people find you? What have you been up to?
I've been teaching a lot this last couple of months, so it was really challenging because I'm traveling also. But now it's over. I can dedicate my life to working from home, which will not require me to travel.
Oh, nice.
And doing more content. I will be in Amsterdam. You can find me there if you go to the Magic Con. So Hopefully, I'll find such illustrious members of our community like Marshall Sutcliffe, and we can hang out a bit.
You will.
At least whenever work will permit you.
I will be there.
But yeah, I'll be wearing I've printed some T-shirts with my avatar Einstein with kiss makeup face.
Cool.
So you will be able to spot me in the rooms and come and say hi, because I know that some of you only know my voice, for which I'm very sorry, and maybe my Twitter avatar. For which I'm also very sorry.
Should we tell them that these go up on YouTube? These podcasts.
I know they go on YouTube. That's why I put my best outfit. No,
you look great, Sierky. Yes,
I know that they go on YouTube, but not everyone knows it. And I've bumped into that in Spotlight London when I went, and someone talking to me realized that I'm me, because they only knew my voice and they only reacted to the voice because they never watched the YouTube part. So,
that's funny. Yeah, well, we'll see you there.
You don't have to deal with that. You're like the faces of magic. I am not. I'm the rusty background voice every 10 episodes of limited resources. So I have to make sure that my image is there. Of course, my podcast, it is semi-regular because, again, I was swamped with the teaching. But now I can do them way more often.
So we'll look forward to a glut of content from you when you're done with your travels.
Well, this is my problem. I can't release gluts because I'm data-based. So I can only release my episodes when the data appears. I can't. I'm always like behind the curve. It's good data, but I have to wait for it to be produced by people.
And then you have to
the tragedy of the data. It's the most profound source of information. However, it's just a week late.
Yeah, it's always looking backwards. Yes. Well, anyway, thanks for coming on, Sierkovitz, and I'll put a link to your channel in the show notes if anybody wants to check it out. That's going to do it for this episode of the show. If you want to find us on social media, Marshall_LR and Luis is LSV, pretty much everywhere. You can find everything related to the show at lrcast.com. I want to say thank you to our Patreon supporters and to Ultimate Guard for their support of the show. That's going to do it for this one. We'll see you next week.
All right, I'm going to put you guys on the spot, but I'll go first so you guys have some time to think of your answer. What is the card you miss being in Cube the most? For me, it's Riftwing Cloudskate. I just really enjoyed Riftwing Cloudskate. The feeling of suspending it on turn 2 and just knowing that like in a couple turns you're gonna have a good turn and you can like set up cool stuff like maybe Wrath the turn before Cloudskate comes down, or it comes down on a turn where maybe you're doing some Storm stuff, because it certainly wasn't above playing Storm and Cloudskate in the same deck. And, Cloudskate, Venser, Glenelendra, these are all cards that I kind of view in the same bucket. And the world has passed them by. You get to play new versions of it. Fairy Mastermind is kind of like a spiritual successor a little bit to some of these cards. Or Glenelendra Guardian, right? The 2-mana, 3-mana, 2/3 Flying Flash. Like that one's the cube right now. But nothing really beats a good old Riftwing. And it's just been a long time since I've cast this card.
For me, Oracle of Moldiah.
Oh, that was on my list too. So good.
Remember when it was good? Like, oh man, that's the thing I liked about it. It wasn't just like a pet card. It was actually good. You could do cool stuff with it. You could get ahead on lands. You could manipulate the top of your library to get even more lands. And of course, being Vintage Cube, there's stuff to spend the mana on. And there's also neat combos with, fetch lands and strip mine and stuff like that to get you extra land drops. So yeah, I not only miss Oracle, but I miss when Oracle was good.
Circa, you have a favorite cube card that's rotated out?
I mean, because I never played on the Modo version of the Vintage Cube, I don't have this kind of nostalgic things. But I know that which card I'm going to be missing pretty soon, I'm pretty sure, and that's going to be Recurring Nightmare.
That one jumps in and out. Like that one, I think you do sometimes.
But you know that the Recurring Nightmare Survival was my first standard deck when I started playing. So
was it
that
really?
I built properly. Like my first proper tier 1 standard deck was Survival Recurring Nightmare with all those ETB, or as we called them then, 187 creatures.
Yes.
So I have
it. Yep.
It comes from the California Penal Code, doesn't it?
It does.
It's the code. It's the code for murder. It's because
Yeah,
Necrotol was like the first
exactly,
of these, and it killed something when it came into play. So people used to call these the 187 creatures for a long time.
So yeah, I mean, I'm just giving you my my boomer credentials there.
No one doubted your boomer credentials. You just told me, who's one of the more boomery people in Magic at this point, that you played in pre-releases before me, which is true. But so I don't think there's any risk of that.
Yep, I did open Gilded Drake in my Urza Saga pre-release, which was fun. Who knew that this card is going to be worth something then? Gilded Drake is my nemesis. I opened it in the pre-release. I got completely beaten by Osip Lebedovic in the Pro Tour by a Gilded Drake because I didn't prepare for it, and it was a secret tech that they figured out in their team, and the Reanimator Mirrors. And then, of course, I lost my Gilded Drake, so I didn't even get the 500 quid value from it now.
Oh, no.
We don't want to get into comparing what old cards we used to have contest.
No, that I'm not competing with that one.
I don't even want to say how many digits of cards have flown through my grasp one or another. Mostly as a foolish like teenager, where I just I got a Mox Jet stolen from me at a card shop, and it like tilted me so much I just sold all the rest of my power, and it was like pennies on the dollar compared to what it is now.
Ouch. Well, you got them back, luckily.
Well, I did buy them, which again, in a way that's now much cheaper than it is today. So it's like, the whole thing is just kind of funny. You win some, you lose some.